His scream sounded like it was being pulled from his chest by a demon, echoing through the trees in the dead of night. And just like that, the mighty warrior who had been our shield, our pride, was nothing more than a heap of blood and bones. They called him Ogondo the Unbreakable. I was just a boy when he first saved our village. Our land was small, but every year, raiders would come from the east, thinking they could take our food and burn our homes. And every year, Ogondo would stand at the front of our village, a spear in one hand and a shield in the other, tall as a baobab tree, staring down the raiders until they trembled and fled. Ogondo was strong like the spirits of the ancestors. He had scars all over his body, trophies from the countless battles he had fought. No one knew how many men he had killed, but they said that even death feared Ogondo. I remember one night when he returned from a long journey, carrying 3 heads of warriors who tried to ambush him on the way. He laughed, saying they didn't even give him a decent fight. The villagers cheered. I watched from the back, too scared to speak, but in awe of him. He looked like a god standing in the firelight and smiling with that fearless grin of his. The elders, however, were not happy. They warned Ogondo that pride would be his downfall, that the spirits do not favor those who think themselves invincible. But Ogondo only laughed harder. He wasn't afraid of anything, he said, not spirits, not men, and not even death itself. Then, there was the night of the full moon. We were deep in the dry season, and the villagers had gone down to the river to fetch water. I remember hearing whispers of a beast in the hills, that thing with red eyes that wandered by night, something that only came when the full moon was brightest. They called it the Mbuiza. No one could say what it looked like, because no one had seen it and lived to tell. But everyone feared it, except for Ogondo, of course. Ogondo laughed at the stories and said, "Tonight, I will find this Mbuiza and bring its head to the village." The elders tried to stop him, but his mind was set. He grabbed his spear and shield, and with a final mocking laugh, walked into the night alone. A group of us followed at a distance, too afraid to let him go alone but also scared to get close. I was one of the boys who trailed him, hiding in the trees, peeking out to catch glimpses of his towering figure under the bright moon. We walked and walked until the moon was high above us. The night was so silent I could hear my own heartbeat. Suddenly, Ogondo stopped. He had found something, deep prints in the dust, too large to belong to any man, and leading into the thickest part of the forest. He turned to us, grinning. "You see this?" he whispered, his voice dripping with excitement. "This Mbuiza, it must be huge." Without a second thought, he plunged forward into the shadows, following the tracks. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. The forest was silent, like it was holding its breath. Then, just as we thought we'd lost him, we heard the faint sound of something moving in the bushes ahead. We crouched low, trying to keep quiet, peering through the leaves. Then we saw it. At first, it looked like a shadow, almost blending into the darkness. But then it moved slowly, revealing a shape so massive it seemed like it couldn't belong to anything natural. Its eyes gleamed red in the moonlight, like embers burning through the blackness. I held my breath, feeling my heart pound against my ribs. The Mbuiza was real. And it was waiting. Ogondo saw it too. For a moment, even he seemed frozen, like he was unsure. But then he raised his spear, his pride overpowering any fear he might have felt. "Come, Mbuiza," he shouted. "Come and meet your death." The Mbuiza did not charge. It moved slowly, almost gliding forward, its eyes fixed on Ogondo. He threw his spear with all his might, and I saw it slice through the air, straight and fast. But just as it was about to hit, the creature vanished, like smoke dissolving in the wind. The spear flew through empty air, landing somewhere far behind. Ogondo let out a frustrated shout, grabbing his shield, holding it close. The Mbuiza reappeared, closer this time, so close that I could smell a horrible, rotting stench like death itself. Ogondo swung his shield, but it was no use. The Mbuiza moved too quickly, dodging to the side, its red eyes glowing brighter. Ogondo began to stumble back, his face no longer full of pride, but fear. Real fear. Then, in a blur, the creature lunged forward, faster than anything I'd ever seen, and Ogondo screamed, that terrible scream that still haunts my dreams. His shield shattered in an instant, his body crumpling under the Mbuiza's power. He tried to fight, but his blows were weak, like a child swatting at a storm. It was over in seconds. The Mbuiza stepped back, and Ogondo fell to the ground, silent. His chest was torn open, his blood soaking into the earth, his eyes staring up at the moon, empty. The rest of us didn't wait. We ran, stumbling, crashing through the forest, trying to escape the horror we had just seen. The next morning, the elders found Ogondo's body. His proud, strong body was nothing more than a pile of bones and torn flesh. They buried him without a word, without any of the songs or honors he would have expected. That night, the elders told us that the Mbwiza had only come because Ogondo had called it. He had challenged the spirits, had walked into their domain with nothing but his pride, thinking he was above them all. And now, Ogondo the Unbreakable was broken. From that day on, no one spoke his name with pride. We whispered it only in fear, a warning for those who think themselves stronger than the spirits, stronger than death. Even now, I sometimes see those red eyes in my dreams, and I remember Ogondo's scream. It was the scream of a man who realized too late that he was not as strong as he thought.